Eastern 7, coming to you from El Paso, Texas. This is the Sun City Leatherhead podcast. I got Danny Ramirez with me. Danny, how are we doing today?
What's up, Jay? I'm doing much better. I know we had to cancel our show last week, but feeling much better than I was last week for sure. So it's good to be on again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad everyone's good, and you guys had a little stomach bug or whatever, and I'm glad we're all doing good. So today's topic is the best NFL trades during draft days, right? So like some teams made splashes to make sure that they got the exact guy that they wanted, and we have a good list. Obviously, I think each person that they either probably ended up in the Hall of Fame or at least made it to the Super Bowl because that took sacrifice because they knew it was that guy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
since we are doing, and this is, I come in with obviously but some may not come with a heavy heart in this episode. Gonna make my uncle and godfather proud. My late uncle Gerard Veyu passed away yesterday, and obviously he would always enter with the NFL for sure because obviously I'm a Cowboys fan, and I can hear right now, "Hail to the Redskins!" And like he was just. It was weird too because Monday he texted us about an old Redskin NFL kit, and that's how ironic that we're doing the podcast. And then he passes actually yesterday, but I guess we'll find out more soon. Obviously, Uncle G make this awesome show for you, and I hope you're watching. And since it is best trade during NFL draft day, obviously me such a huge fan of the Cowboys and obsessively technically, but I would trade away all their Super Bowl wins right now just to have him talk to me. Sometimes we get that sports is just a weird question that that it goes on to life, um, or as under life, I should say, and take it for granted sometimes. And I know he definitely going back to that, he took me to Chicago with my brother last year for the first time, my first time in Chicago, which is your basically where your family originated from, right? Where y'all came from. Y'all
Yep.
moved to El Paso. So like now you and I have some connection to Chicago, and thanks to him, that trip was a beautiful, one of the best days of my life, honestly, that week. But yeah, so NFL trades during draft days definitely helps so many teams. But basically, probably get a famer because they wanted that person so dramatically. So here's one to start. The Atlanta Falcons traded their 21st pick, 59th pick, 124th pick, and then that was in 2011, and then 2012, the 2020 ended up being a 22nd pick for the Cleveland Browns, and all they gave that kitchen sink up for number 6 in the 2011 draft for Julio Jones. How do you think that definitely panned out for the Atlanta Falcons in that trade?
Just real quick, Jay, I wanted to just give you condolences, you and your family, for your uncle Gerard. I didn't have a chance to meet him, unfortunately, but I did hear a lot about him when you would bring him up in conversation. So I know it's a very difficult time, but we'll make him proud for sure. Um, but to your question about the Julio Jones trade, I'm trying to bring up. What's up, David? Thanks for joining us today. Glad to have you on here. Um, you know, I'm trying to bring up some visuals so we can take a look. But uh, based off of what I remember kind of researching that trade. It was crazy because I believe the Falcons jumped up from late in the 20s in 2011,
Yeah,
and they jumped up to number 6. And of course, that didn't come easy, right? It came with a hefty price. I believe they had to give up, of course, their first overall on the 26th, and they also had to give up a few later round picks for that specific draft in 2011. Um, but when I was doing the research, because I've always liked to see what is the value that the teams that trade their early pick, right? Are they able to draft those top prospects to help support them and improve their team? And most of the case, it's no. It's kind of surprising to see the return on investment there, and it's always been pretty. It's not worth it. It's usually the people that are giving up so much end up having a better return on investment than those teams that are getting or recouping a ton of picks. So it's kind of weird.
Exactly.
Uh, but yeah, I think, in all honesty, in retrospect, I think the Falcons for sure um, got the best end of that deal, even though they had to give up so many picks.
So I totally agree. There's a few on this list that actually may kind of justify why they let go their early pick or their topper pick in order to build around other things. But with the Julio Jones trade with the Falcons and Browns, I mean, Greg Little came out in 2011, wide receiver for the Browns, right? He was he did okay, right? The next year, the 2022 pick, which obviously Atlanta gave away also, that was Brandon Weeden. So yeah. See, like, you're giggling, and like the Browns back then, the Browns are definitely more solid, obviously, now than the last few years. At least they have like some type of identity, even though that they're still trying to say that they got a new logo. But did you see, like, that was bizarre? All they did
Yeah,
was whiten the grill, and then they thought that was new. I'm like, dude, the helmet. I talked about it like since day one. Like, a helmet is what you use to guard yourself. Like, that is not a logo. Like, they need to like solidify a logo to solidify an identity to me. But 2011, the Atlanta Falcons hit a home run. I mean, Julio Jones ends up in the Hall of Fame eventually. And yeah, you get Brandon and Greg Little if you're the Browns compared to Julio Jones. Like, you could have just stayed there and taken Julio Jones, right? And then maybe he starts a better thing for your Cleveland Browns, and then he helps a crack that's there, right? So so Atlanta definitely won. I mean, he takes them to the Super Bowl. They end up eventually losing the most crazy debacle Super Bowl ever, but at least they got, he made that team a lot better. He made Matt Ryan's life a lot easier, that's for sure. Quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons during that team. So yeah, the Julio Jones for sure definitely panned out for the Atlanta Falcons way more than the Cleveland Browns. When I said Brandon Weeden, you just giggled. So I mean, that explains. So, like, your giggle just told the entire NFL fan base who won that draft, right? That draft trade, right? So yeah, pretty interesting. Julio Jones, I used to love him, right? Like, I mean, he would ball against Dallas, but I mean, I'm like, you can't deny someone's talent when they're balling out, right? So he Julio Jones was a stud. And I mean, Greg Little, fullback Owen Marisick, and defense tackle Phil Taylor. I mean, what did they do? I mean, virtually almost. I mean, none of them are probably in the league anymore. Brandon Weeden is for sure not in the league anymore. And then you had Julio Jones. David, what's up, David? Yeah, man. My uncle Commander's Washington Redskin fan, so he's right there with you, David. So yeah, Julio Jones, hands down, the better of the value. The next one is very interesting just because, like, both teams actually had success. I think the franchise ownership and the coach is what definitely helped the first franchise that traded. So 2004 NFL draft, Eli Manning gives his little puppy face, and I don't want to go to the Chargers. And then, so what do? They made him happy. So the Giants get Eli Manning, the Chargers get Phillip Rivers, two quarterbacks that's probably are going to end up in the Hall of Fame. Nate Kading, a kicker who ended up being great for the obviously back then it was the San Diego Chargers, now the Los Angeles Chargers. And then in 2005, the next year, they get Sean Merriman, who in his own right, possibly could be a Hall of Famer, because he might have already been, honestly, but he I think he ended up winning a later with a different team. So if I remember correctly, maybe a Patriots team or something. But honestly, this trade worked for both teams. Philip Rivers, I mean, he was like that guy making, creating all those babies and, like having a huge family. And he just showed up to work. And he's one of those very rare players in any sport that didn't curse. So, he was always looked at as a genuinely great guy. So he puts up numbers for you. Eli Manning, I mean, he had Tom Collin, the Murrah family, which is a great ownership for the Giants. And he had a plethora of great players around him, especially the front seven for the Giants. I mean, you had Michael Strahan, Tuck, O.C. Newman-Yora, Antonio Pierce, who's now doing a great job, I think, solidifying his head coaching job with the Las Vegas Raiders. But they both work out. I just want to know, how you felt when you saw that trade happen when we were growing up. Like, what did you assume?
You know what? Honestly, I don't remember like the backlash that Eli Manning got, with forcing himself out of, I guess at that time was San Diego.
Right.
I don't really remember hearing about it too much. I just kind of just pictured Eli in the Giants uniform. It's crazy. And it came up a lot this year because of the whole Caleb Williams dilemma, right? How they were thinking that he's going to force his way out of, going to Chicago and going to go play for his hometown team, which, looking back at this trade, I think that the Chargers and the Giants, to your point, they both won. They both got serviceable, even Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks. Granted, I would even go as far to say that the Chargers actually probably got the better quarterback, right? In terms of production. Yes, Eli Manning has those 2 Super Bowls, but without those 2 Super Bowls, is Eli Manning really considered a Hall of Famer? I don't know. That's kind of hard to say.
Probably.
Yeah. So if you look at of course the Giants situation, yes, it turned out to be really beneficial for them because it gave them 2 Super Bowl wins. And then for the Chargers perspective, right, they got a really valuable quarterback at a time that they were really searching for one, because they were kind of going back and forth between Drew Brees, whether he was going to be the guy to step in as a starting quarterback. He dealt with injuries, and then they decided, you know what, we're going to try Philip Rivers and see if this guy is going to be our next quarterback. And he turned out to be that next quarterback. The one, I would say the one thing that I didn't like about this trade is a kicker. Why would you select a kicker in the 3rd round? Like, come on. Yes, he was there for several years.
I mean, it is a reach, but he helped Philip Rivers score a lot of points too. Like kickers, when you have a clutch kicker, it actually does, benefit your team with offense. Like that Chargers offenses during that time. I mean, they still had LaDainian Tomlinson. I mean, they had a great cat. Antonio Gates tight end, right? And him and Philip Rivers was no joke. And then if you don't get the 3 points, every time, and then the extra point, if you don't, that adds. So I mean, I get that the kicker's a reach, but I mean, I went out because you get Sean Merriman the next year also, and like you said, production value. I honestly, I love Eli and the Manning name, right? Like I assume that he would have been great either way, just because of his father, his brothers, all that jazz. But to your point, I agree that I would pick Philip Rivers over Eli Manning, to be honest, just by like the old school accurate, like down passer. He was just more accurate because you look at Eli too. I mean, he did 2 Hail Marys in 2 Super Bowls, and if either one of his receivers drop it, I mean, he doesn't win either one, or he doesn't win one. So that goes back to like, you just got to have that team around you. So that goes back to Eli having like that perfect coaching, ownership, everything was one. The GM, the front 7 of the Giants was so good. But yeah, David Tyree and, I think it was Amani Toomer, I think was the second one. But I mean, if they don't catch those like ridiculous catches in crunch time, I mean, does he win those Super Bowls? Because you have your other players have to show up. And going back to the Chargers, players have to show up. Sean Merriman and maybe 1 or 2 other people was on the Chargers defense that actually were showing up back then. It was like the Cowboys were Tony Romo's over here scoring points. Like same thing with Philip Rivers. He's over here scoring points, but his defense was atrocious. So like, there was a few players that, solidified DeMarcus Ware, Sean Merriman for the Chargers, but the overall defense wasn't up to par from what that offense was, right? So, of course,
Yeah.
ownership and coaching come down to it also. But yeah, I agree. Like Philip Rivers is your like protocol quarterback that you want to build around. Eli was like Marvin Harrison Jr. You and I talked about like his name. Does he live up to the name? Like Eli had a lot of big shoes to fill. His big brother was balling out, even though around that time he was still Brady, but he was in the conversation every year. Like the Colts are due, the Colts are due, the Colts are, and of course their dad was on the Aints team. That people used to say the Aints because the New Orleans Saints were so bad, but people say he was the entire team back then. Like Archie Manning, considered like one of the greatest in his era, even though he was on an atrocious team. So I had a lot of big shoes to fill. So next one, man, one of the teams that I told you that won free agency so far, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, there's a reason why they have 6 Super Bowls, right? So, and here's one of the reasons: 2003, Troy Polamalu to Pittsburgh Steelers. They trade up. They give a load to the Kansas City Chiefs. Larry Johnson was no joke. He was a stud. Julian Battle, I remember him. Dennis Stallings, not so much, but Julian Battle had some good games, and then Larry Johnson, obviously, he was a good stud for the Kansas City running back position for a while. Him and Priest Holmes, and then someone else too. On that time, they kind of like solidified that situation. And at that time, the Chiefs, I mean, they were kind of, they were a few great players, maybe away to maybe taking that lead. It goes back to, the coaching and quarterbacks, because the quarterbacks were obviously the ones that were kind of like holding those Kansas City Chiefs backs, because they had running backs. They had Tony Gonzalez, right? And they had some, good pieces. But yeah, so Troy Polamalu, we always talk about that hurdle, over Tennessee Titans to, tackle Kerry Collins. And it's just like one of those remarkable plays, right? And you and I always said, Troy Polamalu, if you get someone like him, and then we did that draft, the mock draft, and we're talking about if you get a safety like a Troy Polamalu, then you already won, right? You won the draft. So on this trade, back then, obviously, like we're younger. So how do you think it worked out for either team?
Looking at it, I think the Chiefs, of course, kind of blew this trade, right? Again, you're giving up your 16th overall pick for your 27th overall pick, a 92nd overall pick, and an 181st overall pick. Right. So of course you're looking; those are a first, a third, and then probably like a fifth or sixth. I'm not very good at math on the fly, but I mean, I think that they definitely didn't get the production that they should have got from. Yes, Julian Battle was a serviceable cornerback, but if you look at the players that they got from that specific trade, I think that Larry Johnson is probably the highlight of that trade. Other than that, I mean, there really isn't a true difference maker for a team. And of course, we all remember the Chiefs during this time. They weren't very good, right? And so if you're giving away a middle first round pick for three picks, and you're looking to build your team for sustained success, and you didn't do it during that time, it kind of shows it's a reflection, a bad reflection of the GM. And now I don't think that they really took advantage of the deal. And in comparison, right, we have the Steelers that actually took a legit Hall of Famer with that 16th overall pick, and it didn't really cost them too much. It cost them, just the swap with the first rounds, and then a third and a fifth or sixth. I don't remember. I don't recall exactly. But yeah, I think to be able to give up, those three different selections for a Troy Polamalu that actually made a big difference on your defense, was a foundational defensive key piece, right? And it actually contributed to a lot of playoff wins, 2 Super Bowl wins. I think that you have to give the win here to the Steelers for sure.
I absolutely agree. Like you said, Larry Johnson, great. But I mean, same thing going back to the Browns one previously, right? Like, I mean, you waited your quarterback situation obviously probably wasn't as pretty as it should have been. So like you're still dropping down. You don't, and then you don't even get a quarterback at this point, and then it Troy Polamalu is just a generational player. Like it's one of those guys that you're just like, you know what, like we're gonna take a chance on this kid because we believe it. Like Pittsburgh had an identity, and what was so cool, Bill Cowher, he was built on physicality, right? Like Jerome Bettis and then James Harrison from the defensive line and whatever. And then they were just like, you know what, like our back end is maybe more elusive, but we can get a little more physical and adaptive. So they trade for Troy Polamalu to select him, and they definitely hit it out of the park, right? I mean, there's in the last 20 years, I would say that Troy Polamalu is at least top three, at least bare minimum to people's standpoint as a safety, right? So like, there's nobody like. I mean, he does great commercials. I mean, this guy is just a lovable guy, and then he just balls out. And it was fascinating to see. Like, I mean, obviously as a Cowboy fan, I'm like, damn, I don't like this dude when he plays us, but when he's playing everybody else, like I'm down to watch. And obviously in Madden, as soon as that dude became a free agency, if he ever did in Madden, like I'm
You picked them
throwing
up.
I'm throwing my money at him because I'm like, bro, you're gonna help me win a Super Bowl. But yeah, they definitely ow, sorry. I stepped on a sticker or something, but um they definitely went out for sure on this one. It was just like the Falcons and Browns. Like it was one player and then a plethora of other players, and there was no comparison to that one.
Yeah.
So the next one, we're kind of sticking with the Chiefs, but this time they're on the winning side. So obviously the 1997. I doubt Dennis Stallings was drafted twice in a decade, but I mean, obviously something happened with the chart.
What?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was.
Yeah. I don't know
But
what happened there.
either way, I mean that proves, right. You could put them in either topic, and it still doesn't solidify what the other team did, right? So so yeah, so the Kansas City Chiefs move up, and it's not even that far. So 13 to 18, obviously. Maybe they gave up some money and something else, but I mean, the 18th pick, Kenny Holmes. I mean, he was good. I remember him, but compared to Tony Gonzalez, I mean, the elite tight end that, I mean, probably one of the best, if not the best tight end who ever walked the planet, right? Like everyone, if you think tight end, you're thinking Tony Gonzalez, the Kansas City Chiefs, and obviously he going back to the Julio Jones trade for the Browns previous few topics ago. That Tony Gonzalez was on, I believe, that Falcons team, right? That went to the Super Bowl because they got him later to solidify that
Yep.
offense, and then but yeah, so he, man, Tony Gonzalez, I love him. And then the fact that he saved a person's life, from a Chargers fan at a restaurant one day and stuff like that. I mean, he's just a rarity as a person as he is a player. But yeah,
Yeah.
so like nowadays, Travis Kelsey, Rob Gronkowski, like those guys were the hybrids and like the evolutions because of Tony Gonzalez. Because back then, tight ends, like power blocker, and then we'll do little hitch passes. If you get open, then we'll throw it to you and get a few yards. Tony Gonzalez, like, dude, I'll just upgrade everything. I'll block for you. I'll catch 50-yard touchdowns, and like I'll do whatever you want. And then so now you get the Kelseys, the Gronkowskis. There's so many good tight ends. Kincaid came out from the draft last year, and then there's another one that balled out too from Detroit, Laporta. And I mean,
Laporta.
they're all hybrids of Tony Gonzalez, right? I mean, they watched him grow up as they're growing up, and they, that dude just balled out. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, Dennis Holmes, I think, is the only one I really remember. Scott Anderson, I don't remember. But yeah. How do
Yeah.
you? Obviously,
Well,
you're
when I
gonna
was
agree with the Chiefs, right? So, but how do you?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely for sure. And I was just gonna comment, add to your comment about, Tony Gonzalez being the prototypical tight end for that time frame, right? And now how Travis Kelsey, I'm sure Travis Kelsey, both Gronkowski, they both probably idolized him and Antonio Gates during this era, right? Because they both kind of
Absolutely.
were 1A, 1B in terms of production and consistency. So I think that, with the tight end position, we're reaching a point where it's now evolving to different types of tight ends, right? We have the very athletic types like, Travis Kelsey. You know what? I would say Travis Kelsey and even George Kittle are both kind of similar in the sense that in the same way that they play, right? They're
Yeah,
very
kill.
physical. They're very strong. They know how to get open. Now the Sam Laporta, the Dalton Kincaids, like the new group of tight ends that are coming into the league are becoming probably like really, they're very smart, right? Because they actually know how to get open. They know where their soft spots are in coverage, and I just think that position itself is going to evolve into something very, very beneficial for offenses. And I think a lot of teams are going to start focusing on drafting a tight end that's going to be really good. So it's
Absolutely.
interesting. It's interesting to say that today because we have like a generational prospect at that position coming into the draft, right? In the guy from Georgia, I'm trying to blank on his name right now.
Oh,
Um,
Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers. Thank you. Not you see, you got it. You didn't call him Greg
No,
today.
yeah, not Greg Powers, everybody. Look at me go. Woo!
Nice job there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting to see, the evolving position when it comes to the tight end. But yeah, to your point, I think I don't need to spend so much time here talking about this particular trade. I think that, yeah, for sure the Chiefs won. And you know how we were just looking at their previous trade, right, where they gave up, and let me see if I can go back and show you real quick, with the Steelers, where they gave up their 16th overall pick, and they got three different picks for the 2003 NFL draft. So it's just crazy to think they got Tony Gonzalez in 1987, and if you remember the Chiefs during that early 2000s, their whole team was Tony Gonzalez. They didn't have a quarterback. I mean, they had a running back here and there. I think the running back was pretty solid for several years. But yeah, where would they be during that time if they didn't have Tony Gonzalez? It's crazy to even think.
I totally agree. I'm glad you went back to that the other topic, because if you're not the Kansas City Chiefs back then trying to get a true value franchise quarterback, right? Like, what are you doing? You're Tony Gonzalez, who had inconsistent play by quarterbacks after quarterback after just anybody coming and going in that area, and all he did was get thousands of yards every season, caught 20 touchdowns a season, and I'm like, he was the whole team, like you said. Like, it's baffling to me that they took well, technically since he left, right? Like, it took them that long to realize, hey man, we need a franchise quarterback if we're going to try to do anything. And yeah, I mean, they didn't reach at all for quarterbacks back then. During
Yeah.
that Tony Gonzalez reign at the Kansas City Chiefs, which is so bizarre to me. But yeah, I mean, this dude balls out for you over and over, and yet you don't try to like do your own trade up to get a franchise quarterback, So yeah, like we don't even have that much to talk about because he was so amazing in his position.
I think it just shows you at the lack of, I guess, knowledge that the front office had at that time,
Oh yeah,
because they
yeah.
didn't
The
they
GMs back
didn't
then were definitely.
yeah, they didn't take advantage of the situation, right? They didn't build a foundation around Tony Gonzalez. And I remember them going, for free agents like Matt Cassell, for what was the other one that I'm thinking of in terms of the quarterback? Trent Green was another one. Like they were focusing and targeting those quarterbacks that were once like successful in the NFL, but they weren't proven or they weren't consistent with their production. So it was just a waste. But you know what? Look at them now, right? They're actually one
Well,
of the top
we're
teams.
gonna go back. Yeah, we're gonna go back to that topic
True,
later.
true. I don't
But
want to
but
steal
I
the
agree
thunder.
with you. Matt is injury prone, and then Trent Green was never himself after that '99 Rams team. And then like
Yeah,
you fortunes favor the bold, right? So like if Kurt Warner just doesn't take the reins and does what he does in that '99 team, same thing with like Eli Manning. We're talking about like like people showing up, catching the ball for him, or he doesn't ball out his own. does Trent Green go back and become the starter? You know what I mean? Like you have to be ready when your time and your name is called, go up. And obviously, poor Tony Gonzalez never had a quarterback until Matt Ryan to show up for him consistently. You know,
Yeah.
and that was in a different era and a different team.
And at the back end of his career, and he was
Yeah.
still productive.
Yeah, and he was retired. Exactly. And then like that, oh man, I remember I think it was the 49er Falcons game. I was like, I was telling my dad or whoever was watching, I was like, he's going to Tony Gonzalez. Like there's no doubt in my mind you're going to the tight end right now in crunch time because that's how he's been his whole career. And then I think Matt Ryan tried to throw it to Roddy White or whatever. But I was like, what are you doing? Like, I was like calling Gonzalez's number the whole time because I was like, bro, like, you're right there. You're right there. You're right there. So, but yeah. So the next one, Mr. Ramirez.
Let's go. It seems like 97 was a popular draft. So we have a couple in this particular draft.
Yeah. That was the year that the Denver Broncos won it all. So, Seattle Seahawks, Walter Jones, obviously offensive tackle, especially when we were younger. I remember him now. Like now I mention his name. I remember what he looks like and stuff, but I don't remember the gravitational pull that he did, right? So obviously Hall of Fame talent, great offensive tackle for the Seahawks. But the Buccaneers, I mean, they get Warrick Dunn, who actually had a few years for himself, right? So I mean, and Frank Middleton, another person that we probably want to watch as a younger era, another offensive lineman. But yeah, so I honestly think both worked out because I think Warrick Dunn might have won a Super Bowl later on. Well, he did go to the Falcons too, right? I mean, later on in his career.
He was a part of the Falcons team that had Matt Ryan and them competing in the NFC Championship, I believe. But yeah, I have to agree with you here. I think that they both won, honestly, because if you look at the Buccaneers, especially during this year, they were actually building, like they were starting to build that foundation that that made them the Buccaneers during the early 2000s. Yes. And then for the Seahawks, they got a legit left tackle that became a Hall of Famer. And he was also contributing for the Seahawks, right? He was like a foundational piece to their offense when they had Matt Hasselbeck, when they had Sean Alexander. So he also played a big role in that particular franchise. Did I lose you? I think I may have lost you. All right, we'll keep going without Justin. We'll see if he dials back in here. Oh, let's see if he's back. Nope, he's not back. All right, so as I was saying, with the 1997 NFL draft, this was just a draft that benefited both teams, and that's something that's very rare, each year, right? But especially when you have teams trading with each other. So I think that in this particular case, right, both the Seahawks and the Buccaneers received really impactful players that contributed to both of their teams early on. And so if we proceed to the next NFL draft scenario here that we did, also involving the Buccaneers. The great thing about this is the Buccaneers actually made a trade with the Eagles in 1997. The Eagles wanted to trade up with the Buccaneers to select the defensive end, Mike Mamula. To this point, Mike Mamula is considered like the biggest draft bust in Eagles history. So it didn't really work out for them in this particular case. But when you actually look at the Buccaneers and what they got in return, they got a lot back. They got, of course, they were able to draft Warren Sapp, and he became, of course, a Hall of Famer, a key foundational defensive piece to that defense that actually ended up winning the 2002 Super Bowl. And then they were able to, in regards to what they got from the Eagles, they got the 12th pick that originally belonged to the Eagles, and then they got 2 second-round picks from the Eagles as well. And so when we're talking about this return, they were actually able to use two of those second round picks, one being their own second round pick, and the other that they got from the Eagles to actually trade back into the first round to select Derek Brooks. Again, another foundational key defensive piece to their Super Bowl their Super Bowl championship team. And of course, with the Melvin Johnson, I'm not too familiar with Melvin Johnson or his production, but he ended up not being, you know, a key piece to that defense itself. So good to have you back, Justin. We were just recapping the 1997 draft, the other 1997 draft with the Buccaneers.
A lot of
Yeah, so the Bucks were busy in the 97 draft, right? It's they actually drafted Warwick Dunn, and then they also drafted Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks, I should say. And all these three players, like Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, and Warwick Dunn, actually all played big roles in their run to the Super Bowl championship in 2002. So I was just also letting everybody that's tuning in know that this particular draft or trade in the 1997 draft, if I can't talk, actually ended up being the Eagles' probably worst draft bust, right? So the Eagles thought, they would trade with the Buccaneers to select and reach for Mike Mamula, who was, I believe he was a very good defensive end coming out of college. He wasn't consistent. He had one good year coming out, so he was kind of like the draft darling in that 1997 draft. But that led the Eagles to actually send the Buccaneers their 12th overall pick and 2 second-round picks. From those 2 second-round picks, I believe the Buccaneers used their own second-round pick and one of the second-round picks that the Eagles provided to move back into the first round with the 28th overall pick to select Derek Brooks. So it turned out to be a hell of a draft for the Buccaneers. And if you look at it, in retrospect, that was a successful draft for that team overall, right? It led them to a Super Bowl championship, one that they, I think it was the first one of their second. So it just shows that it worked for them, and they actually had a really good vision for what they were looking to build, and it turned out to be successful.
Right. And the thing that was even before John Gruden got there. So I mean,
Yeah.
John got all these pieces, man, yeah. So 97 the Buccaneers, they definitely went out. They had an identity, whoever the head coach and GM were back then, right? Like they knew where they were heading. And so yeah, good for them. And going back to the previous one with the Bucks, they had Warwick Dunn, right? And he went Super Bowl with them later on in 2002. But yeah, so they definitely had a solidified identity and know where they were going. And yeah, I apologize for my internet crapping out. I mean, I'm assuming his Uncle Gerard messed with me because we haven't talked about the Commanders, but I thought it was like I thought the light froze, and I was like, "What's that?" And all of a sudden, it was saying I didn't have any internet, and I'm like, "Well, how's that possible?" So yeah, it just glitched out. But yeah, Uncle G, good one. We'll talk about the Commanders, I promise. They're a potential trade draft, but yeah, good stuff, Danny. I'm glad you were able to keep the host alive. And
of course,
yeah, the next one is.
I think this is a good spot for us to kind of share our plans for next week with the draft, the NFL draft. So, we are going to be live next week. Well, we are live right now, but we're going to be in person next week.
Yeah, so we're going to be next to each other.
Yep. We're going to be next to each other, reacting to the draft as it goes through the whole first round. This is going to be super fun for us because the draft is always fun. But now having the ability to connect with, everyone who's tuning in, reacting, hearing how everyone else reacts is just going to be a lot of fun. And so, yeah, just wanted to make it clear that next week we are gonna be coming to you in the same fashion, but JD and I will be together, kind of reacting to everything that's going on. So we're
Let's
excited.
see. Sorry, Danny. I can't see you.
No,
Can't see you. We're gonna keep talking. So amazing is that that's gonna be probably our
yeah,
longest live show up to date, right? Because 6 o'clock, I don't know if it's gonna start right then. So we're gonna have to talk and hype up, and we'll do like kind of like what we already like our little mock draft, and then Mel Kiper's draft, and we'll go from there. And yeah, it's gonna be super exciting. We'll have people there, like we're gonna have an audience too. So like we're gonna have some friends and family there, so it'll be fun with that. And then like just and good news, my mic is in transit, so I think within a day or so it'll be here. So yeah, everything's
nice.
so far moving smoothly, and I hope everything works out, which it will. I mean, I this is gonna be unique, right? Like you and I have always, even if we're not together, we're texting during the draft, and then we're like, all right, so and so is gonna pick this because this is what I think they need, and blah, blah. And now we get to like do it live next to each other and get people's feedback, and hopefully people chime in. Like this episode next week is my most important one, just because like this is gonna be the big dance for us, right? Like this is gonna like show if we're ready to join the big leagues, I think, and I'm excited. So yeah, I'm super stoked. So yeah, next Thursday, and it's the day before my birthday, so like everything's just gonna come, like it's gonna come flooded in. Um, and I what I heard too is that so the when you get in the playoffs for like softball varsity, like the high school, with my girls, they get like 3 games, like it's the best of 3 or something. So their first
Mhm.
game's on my birthday. So we're gonna do the NFL draft, and then like I'm gonna be watching them, them probably away. And if they win the first away game, they might possibly work a deal or work something out where they might get a home game for the playoffs. So then I'll be right with them during a playoff game. So that'd be so cool. But yeah, so the next week for sure in sports is going to be pretty intense for me. So I'm super stoked.
You're gonna be busy.
Oh yeah, and perfect timing too, right? For to keep me going and keep me busy. And Uncle G would be like, "Get to work, little Tokyo. I don't want no damn excuses." Like that's
Little
exact. I can
Tokyo.
hear him. But yeah, he called me little
I'm
Tokyo.
gonna Yeah, I'm gonna keep his name going with calling you Little Tokyo here in his honor.
Little Tokyo.
I love it.
But all right, next one, my friend.
All right, let's keep going here. Oh, you're gonna love this one.
Woo-hoo-hoo! One of my favorites of the time. Well, probably actually it is my favorite, obviously. So
Why don't you give us a history lesson here?
all right. So get this. If we did the worst trades of draft day or around that, then the Minnesota Vikings would definitely be there, right? Because they take Herschel Walker and basically give Dallas the kitchen sink of draft picks that pretty much helped us solidify that 90s great dream team, right? That people just always talk about. Whether you hate Cowboys or love Cowboys, they always say, damn, I hate Cowboys, Aikman and Irvin, all those boys just balled out. And then, of course, Cowboys fans, that's our glory days since then. So, like, that's what they bring up. But this one, I'm one of my favorite heroes that pretty much got me into sports, especially besides my brother talking about all that. But Emmitt Smith wears my favorite number, 22. Obviously, you know that I always pick that number on anything that we do. And this all-time leading rusher. And now, who knows the way that the offenses are built and how the running backs obviously get respect a lot. So who knows if the record ever gets broken at this point? So yeah, so Steelers did Eric Green and Kravisi. But let me remind people, it technically works out for both teams. Obviously, Emmett and the Cowboys have hands down wins this trade. But people forget Steelers are one of the teams that the Cowboys beat in the '90 Super Bowl that solidified the 3 wins, out of 4 years. So like obviously that Eric Green and VC I did help the Steelers in the '90s because they still made it to the Super Bowl and they were relevant. Cowher's younger years as a coach. But yeah, Emmitt Smith, all leading rusher, and I mean, granted, Walter Payton. There's so many people that people said are ahead of him, that he had a great team. But I'm like, you don't have it. You don't like for Barry Sanders' instance, right? I think he quit way too early. Uh, I think he made, it was frustrating for him. I get it. The Lions back then just weren't going to help him. Um, but Emmett Smith, I mean, has his shoulder popped out against the New York Giants, right? And people were like, some people be like, "Yo, man, like, just let me stop the rest of this game or whatever." That game helped us solidify, I think, the number one seed, which ended up helping us get back to the Super Bowl and win. So people don't realize that this dude's like, pop my shoulder back in, pop, and he goes back out there, and then I think he scampers for like a 60-yard like little rumbler and tumbler, like Kerman says, and his guts show, and everyone rallies around him. That showed what kind of man he was. Like, hey man, if we don't win this game, we probably don't get the seed that we want, and then we're going away to everybody's, we're away in the playoffs instead of home. So yeah, he make them pop back in, and then he runs with a built-up shoulder, and he solidifies the win for us, and shows the true, what I would say, the no quit grit. Like, I mean, just shows the type of man he was, and he, even to this day, he was the one that literally told Dak, dude, take less money here as the endorsements, and if you win a Super Bowl, that money will just generate everywhere, and then you'll be able to pieces that you need to like solidify your Super Bowl winning team, and it shows what Emmett is all about, right? He's about the team, and yeah, so it works. Obviously, I mean, hands down, like it solidified the Cowboys' reign, right? Because he was the last of the triplets drafted. It was Irvin, Aikman, and then it. So he's the one who solidified the triplet ring.
Yeah, and looking at this trade, it seems clearly it's obvious that the Cowboys won this trade, right? They got the NFL's all-time leading rusher in this trade, and then if you look at the Steelers, and what they were able to select, I'm not even familiar with those players, to be quite honest, but I did, when I was doing the research, I did look at their production, and it's nothing that's really mind-blowing or eye-popping. So yeah, I feel like, of course, the Cowboys were able to take advantage of this trade, select the player that they wanted, and of course became a integral part of that dynasty in the early
Right.
90s and mid 90s, I should say. So yeah, it's definitely clearly a win for the Cowboys here.
Yeah, definitely. Jimmy Johnson knew what he was doing from the jump, Taking one of his best players, or probably his best, Michael Irvin. What's crazy, though, Jerry Jones and, of course, Jimmy Johnson, people forget, are actually good friends, even though that Jerry Jones' ego really got to him in the 90s, and he obviously had the biggest mistake of his entire life to get Jimmy Johnson. But Jimmy Johnson, the one that helped him draft Michael Irvin, Tom Landry, because Tom Landry was the one who drafted Michael Irvin, and it was the year before Jimmy Johnson took. But yeah, they were. I mean, he was like, "Man, if you got a receiver, this dude is the way to go. Michael Irvin's not gonna let you down." So, and
That's right. So Jimmy Johnson coached him at Miami.
Correct.
Okay, and so he put in a good word for Landry to pick him up, draft him, and then he was there the following year to coach him up.
Basically, yeah, like it was just like, hey man, Jerry Jones has a massive ego. It's fine deteriorating because he knows he's probably gonna, kick the bucket soon because getting older, and you need to win. You literally need to win now, literally, like, you know what I mean, in order to see you win another one. So yeah, back then, Jimmy and Jerry are good friends, and they go to college together, and blah blah blah. And he's like, yeah, man, this is your guy. If you're looking for a number one receiver, boom, this is your guy. So then the next year, Jerry's like, you know what? Why don't you just come do the whole team? And then, so of course, he when you get rid of a coach, you don't fire him on the golf course, right? So like it's the way Jerry Jones went about things sometimes back in the day, for sure, when he was younger in his I'm gonna live for years. Yeah, he did some shady stuff. And yeah, obviously it worked out for him because he won 3 Super Bowls at that time, but obviously it caught up with him later on, right? So,
Yeah,
but yeah, he apparently, yeah, he fired Tom Landry at the damn golf course. It wasn't even him. Like he just sent someone and told, "Hey, Mr. Landry, just so you know, you're no longer the coach of the Dallas Cowboys."
that's
Like,
crazy.
yeah,
That's crazy to see how it all played out. And yes, he was kind of a newer owner, general manager at that time, right? He had just barely bought the Cowboys, and
mm,
so his approach was not a usual approach. Of course, obviously by the story you just shared, but now it's like through all the years of him kind of approaching it this way, it seems like he may have burned some bridges,
oh,
um,
very.
and it caused him to be in the position that he is today, which is quite surprising. But since we're talking about Cowboys history, I just wanted to bring up real quick, and I'm sure you know this, but I was just blown away by this story because it was I forget the name of the show on NFL Network that talks through the journey of a particular player. But
Oh, the NFL Life.
is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, the NFL Life of so and so, right, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. The life of Troy Aikman in this case. And so Troy Aikman, apparently Jimmy Johnson had been trying to recruit him to Miami for several years, and it just never
Mhm.
worked out that way. And each time he tried, something would happen, and he would not be able to, join him
And
wherever he was. And it turns out that he ends up coaching the Cowboys, and there he is, Troy Aikman.
and going back to your point, it what's cool about people like Jimmy Johnson, right? Like Andy Reid and Belichick now, who's now elsewhere, not in New England, but they know exactly. Like I've always been that same person. Like I've always told you, I know who exactly I want the Dallas Cowboys to draft. I know who they should get in free agency. Like I've always been that person to tell you, like I know what I want, right? And
Hmm.
those are the head coaches that literally find an identity and just like grind with it until someone basically kicks them out, right? So yeah, Jimmy Johnson, it was, and going back to your Aikman story, it was like like basic stuff, dude. It was like a missed phone call. Like it was just
Hmm.
like, oh man, like oh damn, I just missed him. And then he goes from Oklahoma to UCLA, which everything worked out for each party because let's say he does get him to go to Miami at some point. Maybe Aikman or Irvin gets drafted by a different team.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So like it worked out in their favor and everything came full circle because he was wanting, and plus Emmitt Smith went to Florida, another team from Miami. So obviously Jimmy Johnson saw him and probably played against him and was probably like, damn, this dude is a monster. I need someone like him on my team. You know what I mean? So and then of course Deion Sanders, he was Florida State. So they were, obviously he didn't get drafted by the Cowboys, but they were always like, dude, if there's a chance that we can get you, we're gonna go get you. And like he just he just knew who he was. Jimmy Johnson's like, I want him. And all of y'all already know that you don't have a job next week unless you perform this week. Like he was balls to the wall. Like, I don't care who you are, what your name is, like you better show up. And then so they credit probably Emmett as the most talented, right? The most like, outright just a talented dude. Aikman was that leader, that just like that moxie, like, I'm gonna get in your face if you're not doing your job, like I'm gonna punch you. But they say they both of them credit Irvin as like the guy that just like brought everyone together. They're like, man, this dude would go out and party hard and it'd be 4 or 5 in the morning. And then we're like, oh man, he's not gonna show up. We get to the practice field, he's there before us. And we're like, wait, weren't you just out? And he goes, yeah, I never went home. He goes, why are you guys late? And I'm like, that just shows the mentality of that Cowboys team for like Emmitt Smith's shoulder, like pop it back in. We got to win this damn game or else we're not the number one seed. Aikman, I remember some of the clips when obviously when Jimmy Johnson's already gone, he's yelling at the coaches, he's yelling at everybody. He's like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, why are we over here slacking off? And then Urban just like, yeah, man, I was just partying, but where you guys at? I'm at practice. And it's just like they were made for each other. And that just starts with franchises like Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid. They were made for each other. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. This is lightning in a bottle. And people say to this day, if Jerry Jones wasn't so stupid at that time, or mostly arrogant and had a high horse, that Dallas probably would have won at least one or two more Super Bowls under Jimmy Johnson, which makes sense because he had that team perfect.
Yeah,
I mean,
I believe that, because it was a time where they were competing with the Niners back and forth for that NFC top spot.
right,
And they got to a point where they had a stranglehold on the 49ers, right? It
right,
wasn't until Jimmy Johnson left, then those key players, I believe Deion Sanders was one of them, no, that made the switch from playing for the Cowboys to back to the 49ers, or
right.
I forget which player in particular, but they ended up losing those key foundation pieces for that, continued dominance. And
Right.
after that, they weren't the same.
And going back to your that point of view, Brett Favre was the other quarterback in the NFC that was just, thrashing everybody else. But for some reason, that Cowboys had that chokehold, and maybe
Yeah.
maybe he doesn't get that other Super Bowl because if Jimmy Johnson's there, he probably wouldn't have never let him win a damn game. But because I don't think he ever beat them in Texas Stadium, and of course that year the Packers won. I think the Packers were the number one seed, but yeah, like I don't think he ever won in Texas Stadium, which is bizarre, right? Like Brett Favre's legacy and like how many great games he had. But yeah, people say to this day, like, man, Jones, dude, like if you didn't get rid of Jimmy, I mean, and if you think about it, look at the Mike Tomlins, the Bill Cowers, like Andy Reid's, the Belichick's, the tenures that they have, right? So if you
Hmm.
go from like that dynasty, and then all of a sudden Jamie Johnson has Tony Romo to play with his talent, and then the way he is, like who knows what could have happened for Tony Romo.
That makes me wonder if, based off of those experiences, is probably the main reason why he holds on to his coaches too long.
Oh,
Nowadays.
yeah, I agree. Jason Garrett. Well, and plus he becomes family with them, and I'm like, dude, if you're gonna be the GM and the owner maybe, but the GM is the person that says you're hired or you're fired, right? So as a GM, he should let someone else do it because Jason Garrett is his son-in-law. Tony Romo, like became his like adopted son. Like Tony Romo was so talented, but Jason Garrett and that coaching staff, especially Garrett, like you were there 4 years too long. 4 to 5 maybe, and like imagine if he would have like reached for another coach at that time with a like younger to mid Tony Romo, because the older he got, we could solidify the O line and a few defensive pieces, but he was already beat up. Like they beat him up, but
Yeah, no.
yeah. So
I
the next pick though is just another massive steal.
Oh yeah. Let's see here. Jerry Rice,
Woo! And
1985.
here's another baffling thing that you may or may not know. Jerry Rice could have been a part of that 90s team also for the Cowboys because they were going to draft Jerry and the 49ers knew it. So that's why they traded all this to get in front of Dallas. Beto, what's up, Beto? Woo. Man,
I'll
we're
take
trying,
it.
man. I know, yeah, we're trying. We gotta get some sponsorship soon, and then we can talk. But yeah, so the 49ers at that draft knew that the Cowboys were going to take Jerry Rice, and then so they traded up higher in front of Dallas. That was 16. Dallas was like 18 or something, and they were like, oh, licking the chops, right? Like, oh, we're gonna get this Jerry Rice kid. But no, San Francisco knew what they wanted, and obviously it worked out for them, obviously, because of Montana and everything. Like that regime was amazing. But yeah, so just another thing that you reach just to get what you exactly want. And obviously, I mean, the Patriots, of course, didn't. Thank you. Yeah, get us some sponsors, bro. Get us some cash. We'll definitely have a major studio. But
Thanks for tuning in.
yeah, thanks for coming in, Bethel. But yeah, obviously the Patriots went to the Super Bowl in the 90s, but after that, until Brady came, I mean, they were nothing. They lost. Look at well, maybe this does work out for them, right? Because they went to the Super Bowl that year at that point. It was the 85
Hmm.
Bears. So that's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is crazy, and of course, I don't know. I think looking back at this trade, Jerry Rice is considered to be probably the best wide receiver in NFL history, right? The most productive receiver in NFL history. And the Patriots, it's just crazy because they played against the Bears this year in the Super Bowl, and they could have had Jerry Rice. Imagine that. It's crazy to think that. But instead, they got a center, Trevor Maddich, which he wasn't a bad player. Trevor Maddich is now a ESPN college football analyst or commentator as well. So he had a pretty good career. Ben Thomas, he had a couple good years. Didn't really play that long in the league. And then Audrey McMillan, I have no idea. I just know that when I did search him up, he didn't have like eye popping stats or anything like that.
He
So
was just part of the trade deal.
yeah, so they gave up Jerry Rice for all this mediocrity, I should say. Right when they could have had Jerry Rice to potentially play the Bears in the Super Bowl with that kind of caliber player. It's crazy.
But also, Danny, we always talk about. I always tell you, in order to solidify a team, and you got to win a championship with your star players and then tier B players that don't get enough love, but do all the dirty work, right?
Hmm.
Trevor Maddich and Ben Thomas, if they don't go to New England that year, do they even make it to the Super Bowl? Because it's two players against one. Like, obviously, you have to guard your quarterback. So, obviously, Maddich did his job. So, if you're not guarding your quarterback, would that quarterback could have ever done great with Jerry Rice if they don't have a good center? So,
True.
it's one of those, like, would they have made it to the Super Bowl with just one player in that draft? Or do they become like back then, like a Saints or a Browns team where they just they reach too high and then that Jerry Rice doesn't become Jerry Rice? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of talented players that never kind of pan out just because where they go in any sport. Like it's just like it's an organization has to know where they're heading because like if you reach like Atlanta, they're like, man, we could add Julio Jones with Matt Ryan. They already had a great piece and Roddy, and then Roddy White, right? And then there was another guy that was amazing too. That was a receiver back then for the Falcons that he retired a little later, but
Harry Douglas probably no.
think so. But I don't know, it was a different name. That it was a receiver that was there for a long time. And then Julio Jones came in, and then he was like they were the 1-2 punch for a while, and then he retired, obviously. But oh man. But anyway, maybe it was Roddy Wright, but I'm
Roddy
just
White was the
saying,
second guy.
yeah. So, but yeah, like let's say they get Jerry Rice and they don't do those trade back or they don't get those other key pieces. Do they even make it to the Super Bowl?
That that
So
that's a good point, and I think it's probably unfair for me to judge it that way now, looking years later, right? But it's just crazy that I don't know. I guess what drives me crazy about all these trades is are the teams that give up a middle or early on pick in the first round. They recoup a lot of a lot more picks, and they draft these players like players that don't contribute, that don't become key foundation pieces for their team. Like that just drives me nuts. It's like a lost opportunity for them.
oh yeah, I
Um,
agree. Like, but it goes back to the mindset, ownership, GM, coach. Like they all have to be one, right?
yep.
And if you don't have an identity together, you're not a three-headed dragon, and you're not gonna know what you're doing. I mean, like the Browns with that Julio Jones trade, and then the few like that Chiefs trade that definitely went out for the Steelers, right? So it just shows you like you need the right pieces along with the coaching staff because that
Yeah.
like Belichick, right? Like they got a lot of they got a lot of good pieces, but they also had a great tier B pieces that just showed up and did the dirty work and worked, right? And then it goes back to Bill Belichick. Like if you're not on this team, then there's a proven point that you don't deserve to be on the team. And then that's pretty much what he told him. Like, Brady's going to punch you, so you might as well just show up and do your job, or you're just going to be a free agent. Like that. I mean, it's the winning way.
Yeah.
And it goes. I like you said, like they gave up a chance to get Jerry Rice, but at that time, it worked in their favor because they made the Super Bowl at least. So it worked for them that season. Long term, obviously, like Jerry would have been probably a bigger like. Yeah, I don't know, man. It just there's so many different things, right? And like look at that perfect season for the Patriots. Like they thought they had every damn piece that no one's going to be untouched, right? And then the Giants just come do this like miracle victory, and it makes history. I mean, they had Randy Moss for God's sakes. They were doing what 50 touchdowns that year, him and Brady. Like
Yeah,
it
it's
was,
crazy.
yeah. So I mean, like you always have to have those pieces that just come and go. But when they come, they have to contribute. And then, I mean, at that time, that 1985 Patriots team, it happened. It worked for them, So, but Jerry Rice, I mean, him and Montana, Dwight, I think it's Dwight Clark, right, or something, and like they were perfect. They were that lightning in the storm in the 80s. The 70s were the Steelers, like they just have
Mhm.
that regime that just like the 90s Cowboys, and the Patriots took over, and then now the Chiefs, which is our very last one. So it's good that we're talking about it. Sheesh. The big one okay. So this is where this kills me, right? Because you're talking about like the potential that would happen. The third round they traded away. The Buffalo Bills do. Tre'Davious White, Tremaine Edmonds. My apologies, Danny.
Mhm.
They're not even a Buffalo Bill anymore.
I know.
So look at what you. I don't know, man. When did Josh Allen get drafted?
2018.
The year after, right? So
Yep.
you you gave up Mahomes, which obviously the Kansas City Chiefs. It's crazy. The owner loved him just as much as Andy Reid did. So
Yep.
I mean that goes back to you being one, right? Like they're both like, man, this dude can be a real stud. And if we sit him a year, and then let's see what happens. So these and then the third round don't even count because they traded it away. So Tremaine, like they're not even on the damn team anymore, and you could have had Pat Mahomes. Granted,
Yeah.
Josh Allen is a stud of his own, but I'm like, Josh Allen can't even beat Patrick Mahomes. So I'm like, what is going on? That is so crazy. That is, you know what this reminds me of, Danny? Different sport, but this is exactly it. The Portland Trailblazers had a chance to get Michael Jordan. They passed on him. The very next 20 years or so, they have a chance to get Kevin Durant, the exact same team. And I told Dino, my stepdad, who I was like, Dean, they lost on Michael Jordan. You lick your wounds, like it's decades later. If you pass up Kevin Durant, you're gonna regret it again, the forever. Then they chose Greg Oden, center, and I was like, they passed on Kevin Durant, and I was like, how do you pass up two Hall of Famers in 20 years? And to me, this is it. Like Tre'Davious White
Yeah.
and Tremaine Edmonds is with you now, right? Like he's a Chicago
Mhm.
Bear.
Yeah.
Tre'Davious White, I think he signed
Los Angeles with the Rams.
yeah, so he's a Ram now. And Patrick Mahomes, oh well, he just won his third Super Bowl in 5 years. Oh whatever. But it's so it is so baffling to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. And when I was doing the research as far as like seeing which players got selected with those picks, I was getting kind of excited because I was like, oh wow, they got the 2018 first round pick. I wonder if that's the one they used to draft Josh Allen. Well, it turns out no, it was a later round pick because the Chiefs were actually making the playoffs. So they used that pick for Tremaine Edmonds, and they were actually using their own first round pick in 2018 to select Josh Allen. And to your point, in retrospect now, it's like they gave up the opportunity to take Patrick Mahomes. Granted, nobody knew what Patrick Mahomes was going to be, right? But still,
You're just taking a chance.
yeah. But in that same context, nobody knew what Josh Allen was going to be. He was coming out of Wyoming, gunslinger, so it was kind of the same type of gamble
Right.
on the type of quarterback that they could have gotten, right? So, yes, right now I think now the Bills definitely lost this trade, and Josh Allen's good, but he's not a Patrick Mahomes, or at least he's not at that level yet. And to know that you could have had Patrick Mahomes, a three-time Super
In
Bowl
your,
winner, and you just gave up the opportunity to draft him.
but the thing is, you would have still had your high, like you don't if you okay you draft 10, right, and you're the Buffalo
Hmm.
Bills the next year, you still possibly get the same damn players.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think right now. Who was the quarterback in Buffalo in 2017? I want to say it was Tyrod Taylor,
I
but
agree.
if that's the case, that's shame on the Bills because they gave up, drafting this caliber player. Yep, Tyrod Taylor, Nathan
Mhm.
Peterman.
Yep, we both agree, and I read so and another. Granted, Mahomes fell to 10, right? So he
Yep.
still fell compared to like Baker Mayfield, and there was like I think one or two other quarterbacks before him. But now imagine if you're the Browns, you're thinking we could have drafted Patrick Mahomes over Baker Mayfield. He's not even with our team anymore. And then I forgot the other two quarterbacks or one quarterback that went ahead of Patrick Mahomes also. And then those teams are probably thinking we could have had Patrick Mahomes. And then it's just that's the type of the and seeing that's what's so scary, right? The Bills are thinking, man, we'll build a team for our next up and comer. Because look at the Patriots, right? They had a good quarterback. Drew Bledsoe
Yep.
was Drew Bledsoe was no joke. That dude could ball. He was in the Super Bowl in '97 or '96. I mean, he was still doing good. He got injured, and then pick number 199 comes in. He's just like, I got it. And they're like, all right, cool. We like you anyway. And then all he does is become Tom Brady. So Tony Romo, he goes undrafted. That dude's gonna be a Hall of Fame eventually, especially because now he's doing stuff outside CBS and stuff. So people are seeing, common fans are seeing his IQ level of the game now. Instead of just all his raw talent. So eventually he'll be in the Hall of Fame. But it's just mind boggling because you take these people and sometimes you reach, right? Like Brandon Reed and 22nd pick for that Browns team we talked about. And then if you're I mean, look at the Houston Texans. I mean, CJ Stroud is a stud. We'll see what happens year two. Man, Uncle G, I wish you could be here to see what Stroud can do. Damn. But because he loves Houston, like he's all Houston. That's his city. That's his loving city forever and ever. Um, but I mean, you took a chance on Deshaun Watson, and look how that happened. Like there's so many reaches. We took the damn Dallas Cowboys. I think in the same damn draft, 2017. We take Taco Charlton over T.J. Watt. Like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah,
Can you
I think you're
can
right
you
about that.
can you imagine T.J. Watt lining up alongside on the opposite side of Michael Parsons right now? Because we were drafting before Pittsburgh, and we took Taco Charlton.
You sure did with the 28th overall pick.
Can you? So Demarcus Lawrence, T.J. Watt, Michael Parsons. Right now, we would be probably one of the most feared front fours, hands down. Like it would not even be a question. But now it's just like, well, Parsons and Lawrence, and everyone else has to show up. But we would have had them three. But
Yeah.
it's just the risk of reward, right? I mean,
It, it's crazy because if you think about the 2017 NFL draft, it was just it may be like a foreshadow of what's to come next Thursday because 2017 you had Mitch Trubisky, of course I remember that one. You
Mitch,
had
Mitch.
Deshaun Watson, you had I'm trying to Deshaun Kaiser I believe from Notre Dame. And then you had of course Patrick Mahomes. Those were the top four quarterbacks that everybody was raving about that year, and everyone had Mitch Trubisky as a top prospect, the number one overall prospect in terms of that position. And it went crazy, right? It only took for the Bears to trade up one spot to draft Mitch Trubisky, And then after that, it took Houston trading up to take to take Deshaun Watson, and then the Chiefs traded up with the Bills to select Patrick Mahomes. It's like it was like
Who's
a chain of
Kaiser?
events. Kaiser, I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I do remember Kaiser, and he was pretty good, but he wasn't first round talent good. And I
Oh, he's
still
the
at that,
quarterback.
yeah, I didn't buy the
Where,
hype at that point,
where did he
and
go?
he went to Green Bay. Green Bay drafted him, sat under Rodgers. He came in to replace Rodgers because I think Rodgers got hurt with the Bears in the Bears game that first week. Came in, sucked, and then after that, he just kind of bounced around the league, and now I don't know what he's doing. So,
So
it,
2018 is when they drafted Jordan Love, right?
2018, I want to say it was like 2020, wasn't it?
I don't know.
Wasn't it like the pandemic? I remember it. I don't know. I just remember Roger Goodell being in his basement. Could be wrong.
But so Baker Mayfield wasn't in this draft. I thought he was.
Baker was 2018,
Oh, okay.
and the same year that Josh Allen came out.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
then so it was Baker, Sam Darnold, and then it was Josh Allen, and then Josh Rosen.
Woo!
Yeah,
Josh Rosen
crazy.
was a major bust, man. That poor guy. I mean, he's on his what, 15, 14?
But see, that's the thing I don't know is like these quarterbacks. It's kind of like what we're going through right now with Jaden Daniels and JJ McCarthy. It's like we're hyping these players up. We don't necessarily know how they're going to produce in the NFL, but we're building them up so somebody could draft them high, and then they get the same type of opportunity that Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen came in to come in as a backup, right? He came in when somebody got injured. I forgot, sucked it, and then he just never got an opportunity again. So he bounced from team to team.
He got
Same
drafted by the
thing,
Cardinals, right?
yeah, by the Cardinals. And same thing happened to Sam Darnold. If you think about it, Sam Darnold came in, he struggled. Then the Jets moved
14.
on, and there he is. He's with the 49ers now, and
The
now
Vikings.
he's with the Vikings. Yeah, it's just crazy to see, how these top quarterback prospects are valued at the inception of them being drafted, and then all of a sudden it's just, oh, you know what, you're not good enough, and
So
and it's
crazy.
okay. It's okay for a franchise to admit that, which is crazy. That as an NFL franchise, that would piss me off to know that my team spent a third, a fourth overall pick on a quarterback they truly didn't believe in. They just bought the hype.
Uh, and they do that all the time. People
Yeah,
reach so much. Like, remember, I remember you were like, dude, I heard that we're gonna get Mitchell Trubisky, and I was like, dude, he had one good year of college, and he was a transition player. Like, what are
yeah.
they like? I mean, what's going on? And then after what, year two, that's when I started telling you ditch Mitch. Like, it's time to ditch Mitch. But yeah,
And
it's
boy, were you right.
it's so wild. Like, there's so many reaches, and then I think this, like you said, I think you're hitting the nail in that coffin. That this year's quarterback draft class is going to be massively reached by at least 3 players to 3 teams, like JJ, Penix, and maybe Penix, right? Or someone else that maybe one a team, maybe a quarterback falls and then he actually does really well, right? So then
Hmm.
people are like, dude, what? Like, or Patrick Mahomes style, where like he fell to us and we could have had him and blah blah, or he fell to that team and we could have had him, and it's so beyond bizarre. Like, that's what's the craziest thing about the draft, the pandemonium. Like, usually we know 1 and 2, right? Like, that's pretty much solidified. It's like the first 2 picks are pretty much like, if everyone's already like hyped it enough to where like we know the Commanders are probably going to get Jaden Daniels and the Bears are going to get Caleb Williams. And sure enough, when we first started this journey, they still had Justin Fields. So then now you
Yeah.
trade him away. You sure as hell are going to draft a quarterback. Like, if you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. at 1, and then and then you wait for a quarterback to fall to you at 9 or whatever they go next, like, that's gonna, like, you all as Bears fans are gonna start a riot. And that's the craziness of the NFL draft, right? Like, other franchises and other sports, WNBA, NBA, baseball, even and stuff. when you kind of miss on a prospect early on, you have a chance to really bounce back in free agency and then other draft picks and other stuff. The NFL, I mean, you can get a Tom Brady late and you can build a dynasty right then and there. You can get a Patrick Mahomes like this, what we're doing about right now, because someone wanted to trade back and, thinking that they're going to win the trade. And then you just solidify your franchise right there and start a dynasty. You know what I mean? So it is.
Yep.
The NFL is the craziest draft in any sport. Like, I don't care who you're talking to, like, because someone can fall or they can rise at the perfect time. And if they go to the right organization for their mindset, Drew Brees finding new life in the Saints, right? And then boom, he wins a Super Bowl. Eli Manning getting swapped out with Phillip Rivers, going to Tom Coughlin. It wins out for him. He wins Super Bowls because of the reign of that Giants team. Like, there's so many things that change dramatically in the NFL each year. Just like a Super Bowl contender from last year, which I honestly might be my Cowboys, will fall flat massively this year. And that happens every year. The Eagles did it last year, the previous year the Rams did it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so many things that change throughout because of the NFL draft and because of the salary cap of NFL free agency. Your team may not be a threat the following year just because of the pieces that you let go. Like Bills, for instance. Like, we're talking about these players right here on this board. They're not a part of it. Micah White's not a part of it. Like, there's so many veteran pieces that just left. Are you going to be a threat? Like, you don't know because you're hoping this draft that you're going to be able to find the pieces. But rookies are rookies, and it is the hardest. The NFL is the hardest rookie year of any sport. Like, you can't just jump like Wamba from the NBA. He's lanky, tall, whatever. They can dunk. Like, he can just jump in, right? And then like the baseball, like if you can hit a damn ball, you're in. Like you're going to be a stud. But the NFL is like, bro, you're coming in as a rookie. Let's see if you can last all 16 games. Like Richardson last year, the likes to run. Quarterback of the Colts, and look what happened. Season injury. I'm like, you cannot run every time. And Lamar, what was good about Lamar, he realized in the middle of year one to going into year two, right? It's kind of like, all right, man, maybe I should just when the lanes are there, then I'll run, but I'm not going to try to run all the time. And he became more of a prolific passer. So let's see what Richardson does year two, right? Let's see if he like changes his game and becomes a prolific passer more than because then the Colts are going to be right back where they're as soon as Andrew Luck retired. My God, can we find our next Peyton Manning, right? So the NFL draft is so bizarre.
I guess there's just so many different factors that go into the football itself, right? You have more players on a particular side of the football, whether it be offense or defense. You have to develop to the speed of the game, right? You adapt to that. Then it's just so many different factors that play in, right? Do you have good veterans that will teach you the ropes, or do you have those veterans that are gonna be like, you know what, you're not taking my spot, rookie? And when you're comparing the NFL to other sports like basketball, baseball, just what you were saying, right? When it comes to the impact of the selection, it's not as much. It's not as impactful, I guess, right? Because you have the ability to still depend on other teams, right? You're not the basketball you have 5 players, you have the bench, so it's not like they have to develop into something right off the bat. They can kind of transition slowly. You have more games, there's probably less pressure because of that. In baseball itself, that's a different animal in itself because you have the minor leagues. You kind of adjust to the speed that way. Then you just keep going from single A to triple A until you adjust enough to go into the big leagues. And so with the NFL, it's like rookie, you start and you better contribute right away. If not, we're not going to re-sign you after your 4th year, or we'll trade you to another team. It's like the leash is much shorter in the NFL, and it's like puts a lot more pressure, I think, on players to contribute right away.
And that's why so many fans and people that do what we do, talk about sports from all the channels and stuff. That's why they say the NFL, the acronym is not for long, right? So like it's
Yeah.
not the National Football League, it's the not for long league, like, or not for long organization. Like, because if you don't show up, you're out. Like, because you can't adapt or whatever the man said, you get injured, like you can't handle it. And that's where I kind of like it. I am cool with like the NFL being um the main like organization telling kids, like at least get close to a major degree or something, just in case, like it doesn't work out. So at least you have something in the backbone, right? So that's cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the not for long organization, I mean, you got to show up, and then if you don't, like you're 1 to 2 years or you're out. Especially if you're not a quarterback or something. Like if you're a secondary player, or yeah, like a safety cornerback, and then you play special teams, and then the next young special teams player comes in, like he's just gonna take your damn spot. Like if you don't
Yep.
show up, like it's boom or you're gone. And yeah, so this draft, honestly, this draft coming up is kind of, I guess because we're doing an episode, but to me, it's one of the more unique ones just because we've already seen how crazy free agency has already been, right? Like so many pieces of players that were with franchises so many years are all elsewhere, right? So it's just like, holy crap, like what just happened? And then now we're talking about draft day trades. We know there's going to be some, especially
Oh
probably
yeah.
like round one. And I mentioned three receivers that like watch out. T. Higgins, like granted, like they gave him the franchise tag, but who knows? Someone might give him a kitchen sink trade, and then they go for it. Brandon Ayuk's future San Francisco's in doubt, and then Stephon Diggs that was the third one. He's already fall. He already fell. He went to the Houston Texans, right? So like now, where does T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk fall in the draft? And then the free agency is like Justin Simmons still a free agent. There's still free agents that I think can be solidified in great team or to help solidify teams. And do they get signed right before the draft? Probably not at this point because they're going to see what they get in the draft. And then after, like, hey man, we didn't technically get the safety that we want. So Justin, like, you down? Like, what, like you want to come join our regime? And players like that. So this NFL draft is the more bizarre to me because so many teams, I think, like a Pittsburgh Steelers, right? They're gonna reach, and I think I even like picked a receiver that you're like, man, that's kind of a reach, and I'm like, well, they've already done, like they're reaching right now. They're trying to go all in and win, and I think that the Falcons are gonna do the same. Like I think there's gonna be several teams. The Vikings have 2 picks. And then I think there's another team that has 2 picks. I think they could easily trade away or trade back if need be. And since we're doing draft trade days, this is the topic today. You and I have been talking about like we look up online potential trade. Apparently, whispers, like it's always like they always say whispers in the hallway or in the dark or whatever. But like I told you about the Patriots being interested in Dak Prescott. Well, lately, last week and a half, obviously we didn't do a show last week, but the last 2 weeks in Las Vegas.
I can't hear you no more.
You can't hear me? The heck?
Let me see if this works here.
Can
Try
you hear me?
talking now. No. Log off
Check,
and come back
1,
in.
2.
I think this is a good
Oh man.
point for me to again highlight next week's episode where Jay and I are actually going to be doing or reacting to the NFL draft live. So we're excited to be hosting this episode live in person for several hours to kind of recap every selection, every draft or not draft, well, every draft selection, every trade that happened as it goes. And then also we're looking for you all to engage with us, comment, react. We'd love to hear from you as we have this live episode for all of you. Again, to those 10 people that have tuned in, thank you so much for being with us the whole time today. I have to say that I have to give a lot of kudos to our friends and families for all the support as we start to roll out this Sun City Leatherheads. We're excited for being able to grow our brand, our channel, and if you can give us a like on all of our social medias, share with any of your friends, family, just that way we can reach more people and grow our channel from there. Our goal is to, of course, be able to monetize our channel, so that way we can improve our equipment, and Justin can have audio and and join our
Right.
conversation.
Can
But
you hear me
yes,
now?
yeah, we got you loud and clear.
All right. I'm
Um,
so glad I'm getting that new mic soon because like even yesterday at my ball game, apparently like my mic kind of like wigged out at one point. I'm like, dude, what's going on? But
yeah, I hope it'll be good next week. No
yeah.
worries, and we'll be in together, so less less technical difficulties. I would hope.
So going back to what I was doing before my mic decided to mic out. Yeah, so apparently the Las Vegas Raiders have been an interesting topic in the trade rooms lately for Dak Prescott, and they said that they're don't be surprised since Dallas is going to probably move away from him anyway in a year because of them not signing him again. That why not get rid of him, right? Like why not like start the transition now? So yeah, they said the Raiders. One of my sports things that I follow, they said Raiders are a team to watch. So what if they just swap picks and Dak goes to the Las Vegas Raiders, and then we get I forgot what they're drafting, like 10 or 11 or something. Um,
That would blow me away. I just can't picture Dallas trading away Dak, but it does make sense, right? From um, you know, I guess from a future perspective, right? Building that team for sustained success. Like you're looking to start over, with the cheaper contract to help you pay those CD Lambs, to help you pay Micah Parsons. So
and
yeah, I mean it makes sense, but yeah, this is just something that I can't picture Jerry Jerry doing. But
so going back to that point, I think like talking about him in the bucket, right? Now's the time for him. Like if he wants to go all in, he needs to do something that he's not used to doing. And what I think it'd be a great move, especially if we're gonna like get away from Dak next year. Might as well do it now. And plus, you as an organization, when you free up that cap space, then you don't allow the CMs or the Michael Parsons to get agency, right? Like you don't give them the opportunity to hold out from going forward, or like hey, I want a bigger contract, because you're going to be like, hey, we just got rid of all this money, we're going to sign right now because we don't want you to hit the market next year. If you hit the market next year, we're not going to have you.
yep,
So like I think for an organizational standpoint, he says we're going all in. Like that's how you all in at this point. So you get more draft picks, a young fresh quarterback, and then you get to sign all the pieces that are on your team right now, and then next year pieces that you want in free agency, you can go from also. Gabe, Gabe, that would be crazy. But honestly, man, like Jerry Jones has to do something, right? Go Bulls. Yeah, we're
they're
talking.
playing right now.
Okay. Oh yeah, good job Lakers for winning that play in. But so yeah, the I agree with you. I don't see it happening, but I'd love for it to happen just for the fact that like if for Cowboy fans that are listening, hear me out. Obviously, there's a lot of Dak lovers. If we haven't won in 30 damn years, what's waiting one more year at this point to solidify our team like make a bull juggernaut like the San Francisco 49ers? Like, why wouldn't we want to do that? Like I'm like, we've waited so long. I'm down to wait one more extra year to actually make that jump to the NFC Championship, to maybe possibly be in the Super Bowl with a young quarterback and then a Super Bowl caliber team, hands down. Parsons, Lamb, and Ferguson, the pieces that we have right now, they're amazing and they're going to help us. But like, if we can bring parts to help them and solidify that Super Bowl caliber team like the 49ers have done, then why not? Then we could trade. So let's say that pandemonium happens, Dak leaves, right? Then that just opens up the door for a Brandon Ayuk trade, hands down, right? You could sign CD, we could sign Brandon Ayuk right now, and have Parsons all in one go, and then you can have a young quarterback to learn from them, just like Brock Purdy. Like it makes too much sense to not work. And look at Brock, he came in his rookie year with that Super Bowl caliber team, and he made it to the NFC Championship game. So I mean, who knows what we can do, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you put him with those kind of pieces, right, at the wide receiver position,
Right.
I think he wouldn't have to do too much. Um, the other thing that they would probably need to do to kind of help a rookie quarterback is get a running back, a legit running back. You know, I saw that they got Royce Freeman yesterday. Like, not him. They need somebody who's going to contribute, and is able to be consistent.
And that goes back to the whole running back thing, right? If you get him, that means your quarterback's contract or someone's contract on your team is hurting the team, right? So I'm like,
Yeah,
if you get a Royce, I mean, you could have got Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott at the same time, but you get a Royce Freeman. Like, what do you mean? And I don't know. Like, so I think Cali faithful. I hope y'all ready, because I think an earthquake is coming, probably more sooner than you all wish for Dak Prescott. But I think if there's a way to like just restart now, then why not do it? Because next
yeah,
year we're going to be frustrated. Exactly. This would be a year to do it. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. You know, one can fall to us or whatever. And they do it because next year, this doesn't get us to the NFC Championship game. And then we reset next year. It's going to be 32 to 33 years, pretty much not make it into the conference championship. You know what I mean? So might as well start fresh now and solidify that team. Because, like, man, having CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Brandon Ayuk, and then Michael Parsons signed long term, plus a young team coming, that would solidify your team long term. And then it makes too much damn sense. But we'll see. I mean, Jerry Jones is Jerry Jones, so he's a guy who, I mean, he's probably the only guy who's fired a Super Bowl winning coach the year that he won a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So, like,
yeah.
I mean, my God. So anyway,
It's gonna be fun. I'm excited for next week. I think it's gonna be crazy, which is the reason why we chose this topic today, right? The best draft day trades. I really
right.
wanted to focus on draft day trades because I feel like next week is going to be crazy with people moving up to select quarterbacks, wide receivers going to new teams, right, that are not being paid. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And most importantly, we're going to be live to kind of recap it, which is going to be
Oh,
super cool.
yeah.
But this episode was a lot of fun. Um, I'm curious. I'm curious to see, like, uh, and this might be a Debbie Downer type of topic, but like the Browns, for example, the Jags, like what has been their selections in the first round, the last, like, for a 10-year, 15-year span, and see like how many of those actually hit. That's what I'm curious, because as an NFL fan, as I started following in 1999, 2000, like, I remember the Jags, the Browns consistently being at the top of the draft order, right?
Every year.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah. And then that one year when they made it to the AFC Championship game, remember I told you, why are they blowing up the team now when they finally built something that was winning? And then, sure
Yeah.
enough, Jacksonville went right back to Jacksonville. And then, yeah. And the same thing with the Browns. Remember, they like Baker may not be the best quarterback, but they had a spark and they won a playoff game and they were like on the rise. And then they blew up that team. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Imagine Baker with the team that they had last year.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. You had, yeah, he never got injured. That defense was number one overall all year. And then, yeah, Baker would have just cruised to possibly the AFC Championship game, to be honest. Like, I think he would have never lost to the Texans, especially being year 5 with the Browns or with that offense and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many things. Um, and I don't know.
yeah.
This draft is going to be nuts. Like, this draft would be one to talk about for a long time.
Yeah, it's gonna be a memorable one for sure, and one that I'll never forget. So I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right, I said, well, I gotta thank you for powering through this week. I know that it was a very difficult time for you and your family. Again, I'll keep you and the family in my prayers, and if there's anything that I can do during this time, just let me know.
Yeah.
And
Just us doing this is plenty, just pulling through and, mentioning the Redskins at least once for my uncle was good enough.
we'll keep it going next week for sure.
Hail to the
Uh,
Redskins. I can hear him right now. Cowboys suck. Man, that's gonna be so. Next year football season is gonna be so weird because me, him, and my brother, like we would go at it all year, and he would be the one most of the time that would start it. Just like all of a sudden, like a group chat would happen, and just like Cowboys suck, and then we'd all start chiming in or whatever. But now that's gone, so it's gonna be a weird thing for sure.
you know what? You'll never forget it though, and you'll always think back to that time. So it doesn't
Yeah,
stop. It doesn't stop. So keep going, and again, I'll keep you and the family in my prayers, and
thank you.
we'll get together and see what we can do to, you know, keep his name and his honor going.
I
Uh,
appreciate you.
we have one more comment. It's from my brother Gabe.
Yeah, Gabe, thank you, man. I love you and the family for sure. You and Danny have we've always been brothers since day one, since we all met. And then, ironically, you went to school with my sister, and then hit her with the ball when she pitched it. That was one of the funniest things ever. After we knew she was okay, obviously she was all, "I'm fine," and then she took a step, and then like. But yeah, my godfather definitely one of the main people of who I am today. So I think every day that I got to be with him and all the learning and teachings I got from him. So I got to carry that legacy.
Definitely, I know you will. You'll make him proud, and it's beautiful to actually see the like the impact that he had, right? Just based off all the conversations that we've had previously, the way that you're reacting right now, I can tell that he made a lasting impression on you. He had a lot of love for you, and you have a lot of love for him. So that's something that you'll never forget, and he's always going to be with you. So just know that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this is a good way to wrap our show. It was really fun, and I'm excited just to get together next week.
Dude, I
And
can't wait. And we've been talking about hanging out anyway. So us three with Gabe and the family, that's gonna be so fun.
yeah, we'll make it happen for sure. And thank you to the 14 to the 14 that have tuned in. I know we were kind of averaging about 7 to 8 viewers today, so thank you so much to our family, our friends, any new visitors to our channel. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us. We want to see more engagement. Say hi. That way we can interact with you as well. But I believe
Absolutely.
this is a good start for us as we start to grow this channel. But thank you so much to the family, to the friends who have showed support for us and the channel. So thank you very much, and we'll get started. We'll wrap up today, and we'll catch up with you all next week on NFL Draft Day.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone.
Thank y'all so much. Sun City Leatherhead's about to be out in El Paso, Texas next week, Thursday, the big day, the one that we've been basically building this show all around for. Ooh, can't wait for day one of the draft. Danny Ramirez, a pleasure as always. Can't wait to see you in person next week and then jam out.
Good talking to you, Jay.
All right. Have a great night.